Okay, guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and make a start. It's about 7:05. Um, so once again, guys, welcome to today's session. Thank you all for joining us this evening, or for some of us, morning and afternoon. Um, my name is Rahim, and I'm from UniServe, and we, of course, work with a lot of you quite closely when it comes to applications, visas, etc. But today is more about the general application visa and destination details when it comes to three countries, in particular Canada, Australia, and the UK. So we're very pleased to be joined by our colleagues from very reputable universities in these countries, University of Waterloo in Canada, Deakin University in Australia, and Loughborough University in the UK. And my colleagues have kindly agreed to take us through the general details about studying in these countries. So we will kick off with my colleague Karuna from the University of Waterloo in Canada, who will take us through that. We will then hand over to Chris, who will take us about studying in Australia, and finally on to Alicia, who will talk to us about studying in the UK. After which, we will open the floor to any of you that have some questions, and hopefully after that, wrap it up. So without further ado, I will hand over to my colleague Karuna. And one thing, for anyone who's listening in, if you do have any questions, please feel free to either put it in the chat, or if you prefer to speak about them, then we can, as I say, wait till after the three presentations, and we can do it in the Q&A session. So once again, thanks for joining us, and Karuna, over to you. We can see your screen, so take it away.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here. And I thank UNICEF for organizing such an event. But of course, you are professionals and you do this work. And I visit you 4 or 5 times a year when there is no COVID. So, first thing, UNICEF is a trusted partner of University of Waterloo and of many other Canadian universities. Today's presentation is going to focus on study in Canada. And specifically, I'm going to give examples from University of Waterloo because I'm an employee of University of Waterloo. Canada is a very welcome destination for students for many reasons. And one of the major reasons is going to be that it has some uh, things from IRCC that help students make Canada a study destination. For example, being able to work 20 hours a week, being able to get, uh, after studies are finished, get a work permit for 2 to 3 years. So having given you just that little overview, it's also a very multicultural society. I myself came 50 years ago as a student and studied at University of Alberta for 9 years, and my career started there. I was a classroom teacher. So land full of opportunity. We are looking for students greatly because we are a very small population, 38 million in a very large, second largest country of the world. Weather-wise, I will tell you that we do experience some beautiful cold weather and we do experience very hot summers. We are in the northern hemisphere. The areas like British Columbia have a little less harsh temperature, but northern British Columbia will have the same kind of weather. So coming to where is Waterloo located? It is located in city of Waterloo, and it is, just hold on, my thing is, yeah, right there. It is located outside of Toronto, 1 hour and 15 to 20 minutes. There are 21 universities in Ontario alone. I'm giving you international student statistics from 2018. I was not able to find a 2019 slide to give you that numbers. It increased to over 600,000 students across the world have taken Canada as the destination from which they should study. I must tell you that choosing Australia, choosing New Zealand, choosing United States, choosing Canada, you guys are lucky. You're lucky to have such opportunities available for you, and you can make choices according to where maybe your relatives are, or maybe a destination that you prefer, or the program that you prefer. So there is no harm in learning about all of them, putting your perspective in what can you afford, how far do you want to travel from the location you are in, and where you are comfortable in studying and coming back to your own country or continue to stay there and work. But Canada, because of where we are at and what we are looking for, becomes very important for students to consider this very seriously. For example, it is the quality of education which is governed by all our states, all our provinces have the control. So there isn't one college or one university that you can say, well, I can't go there because the quality is not going to be good. It will be different for every university. Why does Waterloo have really high ranking? Because they've added to their program a very important component of work and study. It adds research. It's a very large research university. But another university like Trent may not give you that, but will also still give you very high quality because they're heavily monitored. We are a very tolerant society. Of course, there are crazes in every part of the world, but as far as crime is concerned, as far as racial discrimination is concerned, we are known for our um, official policies on equality in cultures, equality in the services we provide to genders, various things that make it easier for students to come and integrate into our community. Now, if you look at the thing that we have a large number of population coming from different parts of the world, we don't have a large number coming from Africa, and we're wanting to increase that number for diversity because you bring a lot to the table for us. You bring a lot of different ideas and different ways of dealing with situations, be it environment, be it development, social development, gender equality. So we need you, and I want to say that. 20% of the population in University of Waterloo is from abroad. 80% is natural Canadian born. Now, when we talk about that, the natural Canadian borns can be also international because our society is built up on immigrants. And I'm just going to go further into this. We are globally recognized for our excellence, and for engineering, computer science program, honors in business, and many other things that we do. But let me just be very honest with you. If I now it is 28 years consecutively that we are being known for innovation. You all use telephone, and I'm sure you have wondered about who started the first technology of smartphones. Mike Lazaretti, at the age of 21, brought in BlackBerry. And from that, other programs and other telephones, etc., were developed. So we are based on the idea of research in University of Waterloo, but so are other universities. We're not the only one. If you were to look at a group of U15, if you were to put U15 in your browser, you're going to have 15 top universities like UBC, McGill, Waterloo, Western, Alberta. All of them will come up. But U15 is research universities. Then you look at other universities like Carleton, Trent, Wilfrid Laurier, they're also ranking high in the quality of education they're giving. Doesn't matter where you do your undergraduate studies, you are able to go to graduate studies school from that degree. We do not discriminate on the basis of where did you do your undergraduate study. All university degrees are considered to be movable degrees in terms of that you can go into master's and PhD program. Rights and responsibilities of international students is very important. You are coming to study, and it is what is expected is that you will be in full-time attendance at the university, and that's a Canadian regulation from the IRCC, which my colleagues from UNICEF will explain to you very clearly. If a student comes in and goes to work and is not allowed to work, he's breaking the rules. 3 courses to 5 courses is which is the maximum courses you can take is 5. If you take 3, you're considered to be in full-time attendance, but you're only allowed to work 20 hours a week. So it's expected of students to study hard. Waterloo will not give you that privilege. Waterloo, you will have to do full-time studies. Colleges give you that privilege that you can break down your courses because you are a learner of that kind that you don't want to take 5 courses, you want to take 3 or 4 courses. That is feasible for you. There is in Canada 2+2 programs. For example, in British Columbia, you can study in a college and go to UBC, Simon Fraser. You can go to University of Victoria because you only want to manage international fees for 2 years. Talk openly with UNICEF about your budget, about your ambition, your desire to have big classes, small classes, big university, small university. I had a student who came to me and said, I don't want to go to U of T. And I said, why not? There are too many students for me. I want a smaller environment. So I was able to talk to them about Memorial University, which is giving you a degree at 80,000 Canadian dollars for everything included. So their budget and their timelines fitted to that particular university. Now we have institutions in Waterloo itself. The city of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University is a partner university. We do double degrees with this university. Conestoga College, that is set up for students with little less grade. Waterloo is requiring grades between 90 to 100% for engineering and computer science and math programs. And if we're looking at Form 4 or we're looking at A levels, we're looking at A stars to AAB, or in Form 4, B plus to A minus. So you have to remember that the marks for Waterloo are high, but there are other universities that give you a little bit more break and they will take you at a little lower grade. Please, once again, I will continue to say, sit with UNICEF. They know all of the programs across Canada and they're going to place you in the right program. Always talk to the counselor on these matters. A, this is my score. They will say you are admissible to the following programs. B, this is what my budget is. And the third, but not most important, or not important as far as I'm concerned, that my relatives, brother, sister lives here. That's the least important of things. Where will you be more successful? Waterloo is preparing you for a career ready future. That means that you would have met 7,100 employers. Almost all the universities now have experiential learning. Waterloo has 6 terms of experience, whereas Wilfrid Laurier in some program have 3 or 4 and up to 6 also. So look at that as well. Is experiential learning important to you? Do you want to make contact with employers? What it does frequently is increases the length of the program. So that's something that parents are concerned about. I do want to dismantle that myth. You only pay for 4-year degree. You don't pay for 5 years if you're in the university for 5 years. There is no payment during the experience part, during the cooperative education part. University of Saskatchewan, for example, is a U15 university, and it is giving you experiential learning where you're able to do all of the degree with eating, living, and everything between $95,000 to $120,000 for all 5 years. While you are studying, you're also allowed to work 20 hours a week. So uh, as you notice that there are enrollment statistics available for University of Waterloo, which is now at the 36,000 mark, and we also have master's and PhD programs, but you are a high school. So I come to your school often, and next time I am in Kenya, I will visit you again, and you have a lovely school, and I presented in your school, and arranged by UNICEF, and will continue to provide you as much service as possible. So continuing on, we are going to go to the next slide, where if you look at the map of Waterloo, this is the campus. If I go to Toronto, it will be a little bit different because Toronto has many campuses. It has campus in Mississauga. It has the campus downtown in Toronto. It is a campus in Scarborough. So there's lots of campuses, but Waterloo's is a very uh, condensed campus, and it is on a ring road, an absolutely stunning campus. So you will be graduating with 2 years of paid experience and earnings between $40,000 to $50,000 to 90,000 plus during that period of time to offset the high cost of education. Waterloo is one of the more expensive universities. The fees range from 40,500 all the way to 61,300. So if you have made $90,000, that you will take it off for your costs. So it helps you to cover 25 to 30% of your expenses. Now, it is also, remember that we are having a 90.6% employability rate and 100% in programs like CS and software engineering. Competition is keen. A 95% student in for computer science and for engineering software engineering may have only 45 to 50% chance of getting in because we have a second measure. And the second measure, what extra things have you done? Almost all universities will have a supplementary application in which you have done Olympiads or you've taken courses, you've done music, you've done sports, you've done social service. All of that is important to us. We want a balanced student. We want a student who is able to make life decisions and not just focus on books. So we would like you to know that we look at leadership, we look at extracurricular activities, we look at your ability to manage many things. Same things happen in other university. If the university is a little bit smaller, their criteria are a little bit gentler. I'm looking for marks, as I said, between 85 to 100%. Memorial will look at between 70 to 90% because they can manage students in smaller classes. Ours is a very much direct entry program. We don't have general years, whereas almost all universities have general years for where you can do first year of engineering and then decide where you're going. In Waterloo, you will walk in with knowing exactly which engineering you're going to do. So having said that, please know that we are um, having employers in 60 to 65 different countries. We are here to assist you. We have exchange programs, we have research programs, and so do other universities. I've taken names of many universities. For example, Manitoba also requires 90% or 95% for the engineering program. Saskatchewan, however, will take students between 80 to 85. You want to go to UBC but have only 2 years of money, go to Columbia College, College of New Caledonia, North Island College, Douglas College, and do a 2 year associate degree and then move on to the university after you have changed your status from international student to a Canadian student. So those opportunities are also available for you. So having said that, um, always do your best, do extra and do more. Volunteering in your country is much needed. So please also put that as an experience in your form. Let us know what you have done. If your parents have businesses and you've been helping them out, please add that in your application. Um, you're also expected to be part of your clubs. We have a Kenyan club, we have a Ugandan club, we have a Punjabi club, we have a Dandiya club, like lots of clubs. So be a member, enjoy camaraderie and friendship within the campuses that we are known for. For example, you can be in the boating club and you are in Trent and the river is runs right in the middle of the campus, very beautiful campus they have. Integrate into Canadian culture also. What is the Canadian culture? Multiple cultures coming together. So make friends from all kinds of cultures. We do have a very strong Aboriginal group of people. Please learn about that as well. We are very proud of our cultures and we want you to be part of it. I won't take much more time. I want you to know that let's journey begin, and journey will begin, trust me, with UNICEF for you. Come, work, study, and stay. That is our motto. We will be taking care of your health insurance. There will also be some holiday that you can plan to go back home and visit your parents. First day of classes will be in September, and we will be there for you starting from the airport until you graduate, and I will see you graduate. Thank you very much for having me here. I hope this has given you a bit of background into Canada, a wonderful, very large, very beautiful country, the Rocky Mountains. Once you have seen it, you have seen the coastal mountains. You're going to find Canada to be nature's gift to humanity. Cleanest air, cleanest water. Come and join us. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Karuna. That was excellent. I hope a lot of you got a sense of what it's like to live, study, and work in Canada. Um, to move on swiftly, we will now hand over to my colleague Chris. Chris is from Deakin University in Australia, and he is kindly going to share some details about what it's like to study in Australia and how we can get there. Chris, over to you.
Great, thanks, Rahim. Can you just confirm you can see my slides on the screen?
Yep, I can confirm we can see them and hear you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, UNICEF, for inviting me here, or this morning in Australia, and I believe it's the evening in Kenya. So thanks very much. UNICEF is one of our trusted partners that we work very closely with in Kenya and the East African community. So thanks again, UNICEF. My name is Chris Cameron and I'm the International Manager for Emerging Markets. So that's for Africa, Middle East and Indonesia. And I'm really happy to be here talking. And essentially in life, I have pretty much three passions. One of those is Kenya, because I used to live in Kenya for 6 years. The other one is Australia and education. So I'm super pleased to be talking about all of those things tonight. So thank you. In terms of my presentation, what I thought I would do is go quite a bit broader in terms of what we as individuals and parents want for our children. And those, when I was doing the brainstorming for this presentation, I came down to 3 broad areas. And the first one of those was security and safety. So, and I can clearly say that Australia is an extremely welcoming and safe multicultural country to come and study in. Indeed, 1 in 2 people, either themselves or one of their relatives, was born overseas. So I think that really illustrates how welcoming and open we are to people coming and studying with us. The second part of the idea that I was exploring was about growth in a personal sense, but also in an economic sense. And I think Australia ticks the box for both of those. So Australia itself has, prior to COVID-19, has had 30 years of continued economic growth, which is a record for any developed country. So 30 years of continued economic growth. And in fact, I was reading in the financial paper yesterday that our Reserve Bank, or the Central Bank of Australia, has said that we are now out of our COVID recession and back on the growth path, which for me is really important, especially for students when they're looking to the future for future opportunities. And that was the third pillar of my brainstorm, was future opportunities for yourself to grow and have a career and a future potentially in Australia. So what's the point of all of the study and the point of moving abroad or coming to Australia? You know, coming and joining a university, I firmly believe, is part of the journey. It's not the end of the journey. So I look at universities and coming to Australia as an enabler for one to be able to achieve their goals. So the university that I work for, Deakin, is a highly ranked university in Australia and located in Melbourne. But essentially, Deakin in itself enables a career for the future. We all want to grow. We all want to expand ourselves. And I think choosing the right destination, and each different destination around the globe has different pros and cons to it. So you will get a great education in Canada. You'll get a great education in the UK. You'll get a great education in USA, and you'll get a great education in Australia. These are all top countries around the world where our education systems are highly regulated. And in fact, all universities in Australia are ranked in the top 3% of universities worldwide. Deakin itself, where I'm from, is ranked in the top 1%. But I feel that that's a really good sort of basis for a quality education. So Australia as a destination to come and study, we have things that enable you to solidify your future career and degree. We have post-study work rights of up to 4 years, depending on what and where you study in Australia. So that's designed to, after you graduate, to enable you to solidify the study experience you've had and put into practice the technical skills that you've learned. We also have 3-year bachelor degrees. So a lot of our degrees, our arts degrees, our business and commerce degrees are 3 years. Some of our more technical degrees are 4 years, but you can complete a bachelor degree in 3 years, which can definitely save on living costs compared to some other destinations. And our economy, we're ready to grow. We're back in growth already. The other part that I wanted to talk about, and sometimes Australia is overlooked as potentially maybe a small economy down on the other side at the end of the world. And I think the world is becoming so much closer nowadays, especially with the connection of technology and planes and so on, where we just need one stopover to get to Australia. But in terms of global wealth, I was doing some research, and I thought that this is actually quite surprising. Australia ranks top in terms of the global median wealth per person. So the median is a great metric because it's literally those people who are in the middle. So the middle class, our middle class in Australia is the most wealthy in the world, and our average wealth per citizen or per capita is second only behind Switzerland. So in terms of the future, I think one who comes and studies in Australia can definitely take advantage of that. And just by way of comparison of economic size, so GDP, which is a gross domestic product, Australia has 1.4 trillion US dollars. Kenya has around $90 billion, and the UAE or Dubai has $414 billion, according to the World Bank in 2018. So I put those there just to give a comparison that Australia is actually a great economic powerhouse of the region and will enable you to explore future careers. Now, I have a short video which I wanted to show, and I wanted to show it because perhaps I thought that it might be able to spark some ideas and potential questions for later in the segment about. But essentially, this is reimagining the future. The world has completely changed, pivoted on its head, and what are we going to do? How are we going to reimagine our future?
Remember when we used to imagine the future as a magical place? Flying cars, talking holograms, infinite energy resources, paying for things with the blink of an eye. But when you really think about it, when was the last time you watched a film set in the future and it was full of hope and wonder? Major changes around the world are forcing us to think differently. And new technologies are changing industry more rapidly than before. What if there's a place where that dream of a bright future is already happening? A place where mobility is transforming. Where the world's energy industry is being redefined. Where you can buy and sell whatever you want with a magic wave of your hand. Where partnerships are creating history. Where the government is making innovation easy. And you're more connected than ever before. Where life is lived to the fullest. Dream bigger, go faster, and be better. Build your business in Australia's fastest growing market. Come, we'll show you the way. Reimagine your future here.
Yeah, so I think that video was really important because it highlights the innovation and growth and the future opportunity. So when I'm talking to students, and one of the major things that I love about my job is actually counseling students to look and make decisions about their future, but also do it in a future-focused manner. So in terms of when you're choosing something to study, I always encourage people to look for the future, look for potentially new and emerging markets and ideas. For example, the hydrogen economy, which is one which we all look forward to, with less carbon. So countries are moving towards carbon neutral or 50% less carbon-based economies by 2030 and 2050. These are all things in research and development that when students are looking for careers, to look towards that. Electric cars, countries are moving to ban internal combustion engines. So petrol vehicles will be progressively being taken off the road. This is happening now, which is incredibly important. And you, as students and parents, are the future of this to happen, which I just feel incredibly amazing. So the point of the video was a bit of a plug to the place where I'm from, which is Melbourne and Victoria. Melbourne is the world's second most livable city, but also things like there's a huge amount of research and development in the future, the hydrogen economy. So again, I just wanted to reiterate, and you'll notice that this is a common theme with my presentation. When we're talking about future opportunity, in terms of, let's look at the current situation in terms of COVID-19, there's a huge amount of research and development going on in biotech. Melbourne and Victoria, Melbourne is one of the capital cities of a state in Australia, is home to one of the largest biotechnology clusters in the world. The largest company on the Australian Stock Exchange, a company called CSL, and it invests over $1 billion a year in research and development. Melbourne is an ICT, Australia's technology capital, and over 20 of the top technology companies such as IBM, Microsoft, and Intel are based in Melbourne. Just as a side note, a lot of us are working remotely, and who can imagine life prior to Wi-Fi? A key component of Wi-Fi was actually developed in Australia and in Melbourne, and that has completely changed the world. So often the innovation can just come from one idea. And the green tech revolution. So I was alluding before to green targets and green technology. So Melbourne is a key leader in hydrogen and renewable energy and battery development technology. So you can see on the map here, this is Australia, this funny looking island. This triangle down the bottom is the state of Victoria, and Melbourne is the capital here. So you will get an amazing education anywhere in Australia, but I would encourage you to have a look at Melbourne and Victoria. In terms of our work visa, you can work while you study. You can work similar to Canada up to 20 hours per week while you're studying. As an international student, you're expected to maintain a full-time study load. While you are on holidays over the summer break, you can work full-time. So while you have no classes and not enrolled in a class, you can work full-time. Our post-study work rights range from 2 to 4 years, depending on several factors. And I would encourage you to have a chat to UniServe to just check through those particular details. As I said before, we're a multicultural society, and we're really located and connected to, some would say, the future, which is Asia and Southeast Asia. So Australia's at this really unique position where we're a developed Western country, but we have amazingly strong links into Asia, into Europe, and into North America. And did I mention that we have great weather? The weather is quite similar to that in Kenya. So I know that some other destinations may not have as great weather as what we do, and I had to put that in, sorry guys, but it is sun, surf, and beaches here. And I would like to thank you for your attention during my presentation. I would encourage, after Alicia's finished, any questions that you have for me. I've put my contacts there and also the UniServe contacts, and I can't stress enough the importance of working with UniServe, one of our trusted agents who we work so closely with in market. So thank you so much for your attention.
Chris, thank you very much. That was extremely informative. And again, let me move along and hand it over to Alicia. Alicia from Loughborough University in the UK, in the East Midlands. She's going to talk to us right now about studying in the UK, after which we will open the chat and, of course, the floor to any questions. If you have any burning questions you want to sort of put in now before you forget, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will address them at the end of this presentation. So, Alicia, over to you.
Lovely. Thanks, Raheem. Just can I double check? Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, we can see the screen and hear you very well.
All right, thanks for that. So I don't know what Chris is talking about regarding the weather. As you can see, my first screen shows clearly that it's sunny in the UK all day, every day. And that's exactly how it looks all the time. But on a serious note, thank you very much again to UniServe for the opportunity of talking to the students, and thanks students for taking the time to listen to us all today. I think my two colleagues there raised some really valued points in that you're not going to go wrong in terms of which destination you choose. And there's lots of different criteria to look at when you're making a decision about where to study. So it will depend on what kind of student you are, whether you want big city experience, countryside experience, You know, in terms of placements, most universities now in Canada, Australia, UK, US, everywhere, they'll be offering placements as part of your degree. So one thing I'd really strongly suggest to all of you is to look carefully at what kind of work placements you've got available to you as part of your degree study options. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the UK. My name is Alicia Butterfield. I'm talking to you from Loughborough University, which I appreciate is not the easiest to pronounce in the UK. So thanks for bearing with us on the spelling of that one. Just so that you know, in terms of Loughborough location, it's in the centre of the UK, and we're about 1 hour north of London by train. So we actually have two campuses, one's in London, one's just north of London. So here's a quick map of the UK to remind you about where everything is pretty much. Obviously, it's a relatively small country, so everything's fairly easily accessible. And I'm going to go through a few details today about why you might select to study in the UK for your future studies. You have got some really good advice open to you, both from the UniServe team and also from your school counsellors, and also from your friends and relatives as well. So I think one of the earlier speakers touched on something that's really important. The chances are you've already got family in different countries, or you've got maybe school leavers who were in the year above you last year or the year after at school. So I'd suggest you have a chat with those people, try and reconnect with them and get some inside information about what the experience has been like. Especially obviously this last year, there's been quite a lot of uncertainty and there's been a lot of disruption. So I'd suggest you have a chat with your friends and relatives, contact that person that you were in touch with at school and see how they're getting on now they're studying overseas. Because the more information you have, the better equipped you'll be to try and make a decision about where it is you want to study. But in terms of the key markets, you're not going to go too wrong in terms of where you choose, as long as you do plenty of research. In terms of UK study, then obviously what we're offering to students is a really stable and safe environment in the UK. I'll talk a little bit about the course duration in the UK as well as the reputation, and run over some of the areas like tuition fees and things like that. But the main reason for students to choose to go to university is obviously because you want to get a good job in the future. And you'll get to do that provided you've got feedback from employers, provided you can get yourself in front of future employers. And crucially, it's also quite important to know how much a university works with employers to shape the content of their programs as well. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what Loughborough does in that respect. But it's something which you can start to ask the universities that you're interested in. Because if an employer helps to shape the programs that the university is running, then it means that, first of all, they have a good relationship with that employer. And secondly, it means that when you graduate, you're going to have the relevant knowledge that industry wants you to have. So these are the things which are really important. There's a lot of marketing speak and there's a lot of rankings out there. So the whole thing can get quite confusing. But if you maintain your research in line with placements, company links, how do you engage with employers, what additional support does the university give you to try and link you to that employer and make you attractive to them, then again, you're not going to go too far wrong in terms of that. I thought it might be useful to give some of you information about the UK and the current COVID-19 position as well. And I know from working at Loughborough University, we have a voluntary COVID logistics response team, and I'm part of that team. And I thought it might be useful just to see what it is that different universities are doing as well to try and protect our students. So in the UK, we do have the UK track and trace system. And that means that if somebody has been exposed to somebody with COVID-19, then you'll be contacted by the NHS track and trace service. Sometimes the issue with that is that they may have an incorrect number for you, or they may not know that you've come into contact with somebody. It's quite hard to trace everybody down to the final interactions that they might have had. So the university has developed its own version of a track and trace system. It's called Connect and Protect. And it's easier to manage for us because we already have all of your contact details and we know which hall of residence our students are staying in. So the university has an on-campus testing lab, and that will get results back to students free of charge within 24 hours. So if a student starts to show symptoms of COVID-19, they can register through the Connect and Protect system. We will then notify them of when they're going to take the test, and then they get the test results. And we also have a system for putting students into self-isolation. We deliver food to them 3 times a day as part of that. We have a laundry service that did 600 laundry batches this week alone. And we also have food delivery students and volunteers who go around to assist throughout this whole process. So all in all, we have about 200 volunteers who are part of this team. And what we're trying to do at Loughborough is obviously reduce the number of cases. So if, for example, somebody has played football against somebody else who later tests positive for COVID-19, then everybody in that football training would be notified. They go into self-isolation for 14 days, whether they have symptoms or not. And at the end of the 14 days, then they can come out of self-isolation. So most universities are doing things to try and control how the virus is spreading on campus. But I think Loughborough is probably doing a bit more than the average university in terms of the system that they have in place. We've also moved a lot of teaching into what they call blended learning. So many universities in the UK now will have a mixture of teaching which takes place in small groups, which are socially distanced, and some teaching which will take place in classrooms. And if you are an engineering or a science student, we've extended lab times as well. So instead of being in the lab from perhaps 10 a.m. until 2 p.m, the lab time is 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. at night. And that just means there's less need to cross over with different people. In terms of duration and reputation of the UK degree, standard degree, which is an honours degree, is 3 years duration in the UK. With those 3 years, you then hold a bachelor honours degree. But if you want to, you can also take an optional placement year or a study abroad year option as well, if you want to try a different international country. Obviously, UK has a good established international reputation. Many of the departments that we have in the UK have been around for many, many years, and that means that we're building on decades of experience. So in terms of developing new technologies, that's a really crucial thing to look towards, because of course, everybody's looking towards the future. But a lot of that future comes from past research, which has been absolutely groundbreaking and has made massive differences to people over many years. And the UK is home to some universities which we call ancient universities, like Oxford and Cambridge. I'm sure you've all heard of those two. So those universities are about 850 years old. And then we have more modern universities, which might still be highly ranked in one specific area, but they may have just come around within the last 20 to 30 years. And one thing just to bear in mind is, again, when you're researching which university you study at, a lot of the degrees will give you automatic membership to chartered institutes of different organisations. And this can become important. So for example, if you are an engineer, if you are a basic engineer, a new graduate after 3 years, your starting salary will be about £21,000 per year. If you're a chartered engineer and you have 8 years experience and you've gone through the chartered engineers process, your starting salary is about £69,000 per year. So there is a massive difference, and being a chartered institute engineer does make a big difference to your potential earning capacity. So I'd strongly suggest when you're doing your research, most universities, if they have accreditation from these different chartered engineering groups, they will have that published on their website. If they don't have it published, the chances are that they're not affiliated with any of these accrediting bodies. So for most programs, for most courses, there'll be some kind of accrediting awards body. So if you're a marketeer, if you're a business person or an entrepreneur, you might look at the Chartered Institute of Managers or the Chartered Institute of Marketeers. Similarly, if you're looking at IChem, so that's a chemical engineering accreditation body. It usually means it's a stamp of approval on the degree, but it also means that if you ever want to do any work for a government in the future, then this is one of the criteria that they will look at. So when you're doing research for your first bachelor's degree, just double check to see whether or not that degree has accreditation. It can save you a lot of headaches, and it can get you further in terms of doors opening in your future career. In terms of UK degree costs, the tuition fees range quite a lot. So this is why it's quite important to look at rankings in the UK. There are so many rankings floating around now, and it's not specific to the UK. There are so many rankings floating around everywhere. So the only thing I'd say really on this, without going into a lot of detail about it, is take your time to research what the ranking actually relates to. There's 3 different types of ranking. There's something called the QS World Rankings, and that applies to every single university in the world. And you will find that there are universities from all the top regions that we're talking about today, from Canada, Australia, UK. They will all feature in those global top universities. So there is the QS World Ranking, and that can be an important one to look at. For the UK, there's also 3 newspaper rankings, which are quite important as well. So they are called the Times, the Guardian, and the Complete University Guide. Now, don't just take these as the only criteria that you look for. That would be a little bit like us just judging you on your grades alone and not reading any personal statement or anything like that. So the rankings are important, but rankings can also change. What you normally find is that the universities with higher ranking tend to have a better reputation amongst employers. They tend to be universities where they have perhaps a more established department for your particular subject, but not always. And also they tend to have higher graduate prospects. And when, for example, at Loughborough, when we're measuring graduate prospects, we only measure students who got a graduate level job. So we only count students who earn more than £21,000 per year. We don't count students who went to get a job in McDonald's or KFC, because that's not why you go to university. So bear these things in mind, and that will be why you do see this discrepancy. Some universities, the minimum amount for most universities would be around about £11,000 per year. And probably the maximum cost for sort of the higher ranked universities will be closer to £23,000 per year. And I've just translated that into shillings for you, so you have an idea of how much it would cost. In terms of how these things are paid, tuition fees are usually broken down into 3 instalments throughout the year, but also lots of UK universities offer scholarships. So although they don't tend to offer 100% scholarships for undergraduate students, most universities will offer large scholarships, maybe based on merit. And then for the postgraduate students, they may well offer scholarships as well. So do bear that in mind. In terms of part-time work in the UK, you can work up to 20 hours per week. So just bear in mind, when you first arrive to the UK, you settle in, you get yourself accustomed and reacclimatized to the environment there. And then perhaps you want to start looking for a part-time job. And that's absolutely fine, as long as you can balance it with your studies. One thing to bear in mind is that usually you'll have about 15 to 25 hours of contact time per week. So if you think of that as maybe lectures or seminar time, outside of that, you'll then also be required to do your coursework and do your own study as well. So if you are going to have a part-time job, please make sure that it's going to be a balance that you can manage, especially if you're going to be trying to do sports and things like that alongside your studies as well. What I tend to say to most students is, if you don't need to work, then I suggest you focus on your studies and just enjoying yourself at university. There isn't going to be another time like your time at university. So, after that comes the responsibilities of jobs, household, and everything else that you're going to go on to do in life. So I'd suggest, whilst at uni, if you can, take the time to study and enjoy being in that environment. If you do need to have a part-time job, maybe just to supplement and have a bit of extra pocket money, I think an optimum amount of time to work would probably be about 8 to 10 hours per week. I think that really should be the maximum to still make sure that you have a bit of a social life. In terms of UK universities, obviously you've got access to world-class facilities. At Loughborough, we've just developed and opened our new STEM lab, which is a £17 million lab development, and that's looking at renewable energy systems technology. So these technologies will look at things, anything from the wastewater management systems, which I know doesn't sound like the most glamorous area of engineering, but it does help to reduce cholera outbreaks. So it saves lives from the research that they undertake there. Anything from water technology right the way through to renewable energy systems and looking at biotechnology and bioengineering. So you have access to those lab facilities. And again, talking to students who have already gone through the process, that can be a really good way of getting a feel for what kind of labs they have access to. For most universities in the UK, undergraduate students will have access to the same lab equipment that the postgraduates do. So we don't restrict access or anything like that. And a lot of this equipment is better or as good as industry standard use. So it can be something to really take advantage of when studying at an overseas campus. As I mentioned earlier, also just bear in mind whether or not the content of programs is influenced by employers. So for example, we have KPMG and PwC, who not only feed into the content of some of our accounting and management programs at Loughborough, but they also send people to come in and teach our students. So these are not academics who have, off writing academic books all the time. These are actual accountants, auditors that we bring in so that you try and get some real life impact of what to expect when you go into the world of work. And then finally, in terms of quality of education, you can also look as an indicator to the student satisfaction survey. So this is a survey which is conducted every single year. That has an impact upon the university rankings, how they finally come out at the end of each year. But the student survey is important because that's the feedback from our students in terms of how the university is doing. So again, it's one really quite critical area to have a look at if you can. Most universities, again, they will publish their student survey feedback. If a university doesn't mention that, really obviously on their website, the chances are they didn't score so highly. So just bear that in mind. In terms of job opportunities in the UK, there has been a change to the UK visa rules in 2019. And we've reintroduced something called the post-study work visa. So post-study work visa means that you can remain in the UK after you've graduated. It means that you have around two years, 4 months in which to find yourself a graduate level job. And then you can apply to remain more permanently if you want to. You don't have to. But if you decide, say, for example, you graduate in the June time from university, you can spend that first year working in one company. You could work in another company in the second year. And then provided you're earning over £21,000, provided you're earning above that threshold, then you can apply to remain in the UK. All UK universities will hold career events as well. So at Loughborough, we actually hold the largest careers fair in the UK, and each year we'll have hundreds of employers there. And I've put some of the shiny logos from those employers on here as well. These aren't just random logos that I've picked out to make them look good. These are partners who feed into Loughborough programs and employ our students. There is a placement year offered as part of most programs across most universities in the UK. And again, one thing to perhaps ask when you're doing your research is, how do I get that placement support? Because you can dig down a little bit deeper and find out, how exactly do you get a placement? Is the responsibility on you as the student, or does the university go some way towards assisting you in finding the placement opportunity? Very few universities will just give you the placement. For most part, the placement is something that you apply for as if it's a proper job. So at the start of the placement year, we'll release a list of all the different placement opportunities, and then you apply for those. And you apply for them presenting yourself as a professional candidate. Most of the placements are paid, and many will have a professional qualification attached to them as well. So in our case, that's a DIS, which is a Diploma of Industrial Studies, or a DPS, which is a Diploma of Professional Studies. So depending on what kind of placement you're doing, you will get a professional qualification at the same time. You also don't pay full tuition fees whilst you're on placement year. It's usually reduced. And again, it's one of the areas where, QS World Rankings for employability might be something that many UK universities will discuss as you go. A lot of universities also have a placements team to help you in every single department. So as you go into your second year, because most placements are in year 3, so at the start of the second year, my strong advice would be to go to the placements officer and start to get to know that team, because the better interactions you have with that team, obviously the better chance you have of getting a really great placement the following year. So again, just a few more of the companies that we work with at Loughborough to give you an idea. Being an older university as we are, we've worked with some of these companies for quite a few years. So Rolls-Royce, we've worked with since 1935. Bentley, we've had an affiliation with since the year after Loughborough was founded. So we've worked with them since 1910. And then we have a lot more sort of more modern companies that we work with as well in terms of financial services, banking sector and so on, as well as Unilever and other massive companies that operate globally. A quick overview of how to apply, because I know many of you will get this support and assistance from your tutors. In terms of how to apply, we accept a range of different qualifications. The UCAS applications is the platform where you apply to your UK universities, and you can make 5 choices for the UK. You then have to reduce those 5 choices down to just 2. One will be your firm choice, and the other one will be what we call your insurance option. You will be required to write a personal statement. So start collecting, if you're in year 12 right now and listening to this, start thinking about the different things you do, like volunteering, playing musical instruments, sports, things like that. And obviously your school counsellors will assist you, as well as the UNICEF team, in terms of honing that personal statement and making it really attractive. But the application process is through UCAS. If you're a postgraduate student, you normally apply directly to the university that you've chosen you want to study at. And then in terms of a little bit of information about Loughborough, for those of you who don't know, we're ranked 5th in the UK, and that's the Times High ranking of 2020. We're also ranked #1 in the world for sport and have been every single year since 2016, so for the last 4 years. But we like to think of ourselves as still being a very down-to-earth university. And that's because we have humble origins. So we've come from a place where we did work placements, hands-on experience as part of our degrees, and that's what we still do now. We do have scholarships available for students on a merit basis. And if you'd like any more information, obviously you can contact the UNICEF team, or you can drop me an email as well. And those are my details too. So thank you again very much for the opportunity of having a chat with you. And I'll revert back to Raheem now for any Q&As.
Thank you very much, Alicia. That was great. And just officially, thank you to all 3 of you, Karuna, Chris, and Alicia. I think that was a fantastic overview on the different options available out there. And I think the one thing that definitely did resonate is wherever you choose, I think you're not going to go wrong, especially when it comes to Australia, the UK, and Canada for higher education. So that is all for the sort of plenary presentation part of tonight. We are now going to be opening it up for a few minutes to questions, and our 3 lovely panelists will hopefully be able to answer them for us. It seems people are a little bit shy because I haven't got any questions on the chat yet. So allow me, if you don't mind, to open up the floor for us. And this question actually would go to all 3 of you, and if perhaps we can go in reverse order, starting with Alicia, then Chris, and then Karuna. Alicia, you did touch on this a little bit in regard to the next steps in terms of applying to the UK when it comes to UCAS, etc. Could you perhaps touch on that? And again, to all 3 of you, in terms of the application procedure, very briefly, and the main intakes. Are you guys, diverting from that a little bit, given the COVID situation? I know a lot of you would probably take students in September. Are you opening it up for Jan? Otherwise, for Australia, for Chris, perhaps February would be the main intake for you. Could you guys just touch on that a little bit, if you don't mind, starting with Alicia, then Chris, and then Karuna?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the application system, it's in line with the Kenyan education system. So we'll be starting term in September. Because of COVID this year, we have been more flexible in terms of start dates for students. So we've allowed students to enroll about 3 weeks later than they normally would have, because of the disruption to IELTS test centres and getting your visa and so on. But I think Loughborough's position has been different from other UK universities. For us, we didn't feel like online learning replaced what you can get out of lab time and being physically on campus. So whilst learning, like a lot of UK universities, we do insist that students are physically at Loughborough. Otherwise, we are just an online learning programme, and there's many universities out there that would do that better than us, because it's not something we've done until now. So I think what I would say is There is some flexibility around starting, but I think for undergraduates in particular, from my university, you physically need to be there because we're a science and engineering university predominantly, and that means lab space, lab facilities, and using everything in socially distanced ways.
Yeah, thanks. Great question, Rahim. I echo a lot of what Alicia said. At Deakin in Australia, we have 3 intakes per year. So February, July and November. So our next intake would be November, which is coming up in a few weeks. And due to COVID-19, Deakin has a heritage in distance and online learning. We generally, prior to COVID, would have 15,000 students ordinarily studying online. So it would be our second largest campus. And we now have 60,000 students who are at least doing some component online. So in order to support students and not to have to delay things because of COVID-19, we've moved to a model which is called O2O, which is online to on campus. And we currently are accepting applications for November and indeed February and July next year. And applications for Deakin, you can submit them through Uniserve Education.
Great.
Hello.
Yeah, Karuna, over to you. Sorry.
Yes, first of all provinces have different. We have 10 provinces and 3 territories, and every province will have their own method of application, as will every university. In Ontario, it's a centralized education for University of Waterloo, and I've written in your chat box the link of www.ouac.onca. Very important to remember that we do our evaluation of your grades through predicted scores. So we are going to do an evaluation of your extracurricular activities, plus we are going to look at your grades from grade 10, 11, and 12. And if you're doing O levels and A levels, we're going to look at your O levels. And as long as English is your first language of instruction, no IELTS score or English proficiency score is required for application, may be required for study permit. Remember, 2 criteria: marks, and more marks, and extracurricular activities that have to be written in a proper format in either statement of purpose format or in a form given to you. For Waterloo, it will be application information form. And then give your previous grades and apply. We only have 1 entry in Waterloo, which is September every year. So next entry is September 2021. For COVID, we have been doing all our classes online, asynchronous and synchronous, and things are going very well. We didn't actually lose any student body. We were very afraid that we would. Some students did want to defer, and with having the seminars that we had, chose to stay and are actually quite liking is they're learning another skill set that they will be able to share with their employers in the future, because a lot of that articles are being written by people like Google, etc., that, hey, in future, maybe we will have rotation of 2 days in the office, 2 days off the office. But whatever that is, students have accommodated really well. Our cooperative education, which is heavy duty cooperative education, 7,100 employers were able to accommodate our students this year. So please do remember the application process is very simple. 4 things are required. Number 1, your previous grades in grade 10 or O levels or IB1, your American system, whatever you're doing. Then number 2, you're going to require to give us your predicted scores. Number 3, you are going to give a statement that you have for yourself, that I've done Olympiads, I've done coursework outside. And last but not least, you are going to be preparing for some entrance examinations for programs like architecture, a KIRA interview for engineering, for mathematics, Euclid examination. And Uniserve will guide you through each step. You've also got my email, and please know that it's a competitive entry, and I cannot insist and repeat this often enough that please remember everything is important. So please make a resume, like my colleagues have said to you in this presentation, that write down your resume and showcase yourself in the manner you want to showcase yourself. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for those answers. I do have another question, but perhaps I ought to give other people a chance. Is there anyone else who would like to unmute and ask a question, or if not, perhaps put it on the chat? Okay, it doesn't seem like at this point, so I will perhaps ask another question of my own in follow-up to what you guys have talked about in regards to COVID. Now, of course, the situation is changing every day when it comes to COVID, but and you guys have touched on this a little bit, but perhaps you can just reiterate a little bit in terms of what your country and perhaps, if you want, your particular university are doing when it comes to allowing students in. I know, Alicia, you said, for example, you're not doing online learning, but what's perhaps happening in Canada as a whole? Are you welcoming students now? You weren't at some point, and Australia, I think you were planning on doing it. Is that still the case? And Karuna, since you're on right now, I'll start with you.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that Canada borders are open to students who do have the study permit, but it has to, every university and college had to submit to the IRCC their plans as to what will happen when the students arrive, how the quarantine will work, and where the students will be. Very heavy duty fines if you don't follow those rules and regulations. We don't know if COVID is going away for September 2021. We are hoping, but we know for a fact that between now and May for sure, all classes are online. Some of them are blended classes for health sciences, nurses, etc. So that's happening. But if you are thinking of coming to Canada, please read the rules and regulations. Which, by the way, my friend Rahim, who is asking the question, has it on his fingertips as to what Canada will require from you. And don't be shocked if you're not able to travel immediately. Remember, your health and your protection of yourself plus the protection of society in Canada is very important. We are getting a very bad review this week of increased numbers of cases in Ontario, especially a little bit of increase in BC. And we are trying to make sure that we are secure and healthy enough to receive you. But there are very strong policies on how to do this. And I want to travel to Africa, and though I would like to do it, I'm not allowed to come because countries have said we want the COVID to be settled down. So that's the standing. I'm going to bid you goodbye. I'm going to go to bed. I've been working for the last 8 hours. Thank you so much for having me, Rahim and group and UNICEF. I wish the student all the best and good luck.
Karuna, thank you for that answer, and of course for being here today. We really appreciate it, and good night. You deserve some rest.
Yes,
as you're logging off, Chris, can I hand over to you for the same question?
Yeah, sure. And thanks very much for the question. So generally, I would say that Australia has handled I'm going to call it a crisis, incredibly well. Our cases are in decline, and 2 days this week we had 0 cases. Yesterday we had 2 cases. So we have a real sense of confidence that our government and National Health Service has it under control. We have a lot of track and trace, like some of my colleagues have alluded to as well, and COVID safe plans. So we take it incredibly seriously. And I think in Australia yesterday, there's under 10 cases per day, which are managed quite well. And we're moving to a situation of starting to open up domestically and also looking to do some trials for international students to come in. Number one priority the Australian government has said is for health and safety first, and we want to open up, and we will open up when it's safe to do so, and we'll do it in a phased response. We also, as I mentioned before, have the online to on-campus model, and the Australian government has said that any student who starts online and has their visa granted, any of the online studies that they do from their home country will count towards any post-study work right eligibility and so on. So essentially that means that if one wanted to start and apply for their visa, once their visa is granted, any study that they do online, even from their home country, will count. Yeah, encourage students just to seek all the information they can, and we're always available for help and support. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Lucy, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Raheem. Can you just remind me of the question again exactly?
It was in relation to COVID, but perhaps more generally around what your country, what the UK are doing in that regard. If you're welcoming students, the borders open, etc.
Yes, yeah. So borders are open, and we've had students start this year, and actually, a lot of UK universities are saying that they haven't seen the drop off in student numbers that we might have expected, given how disruptive the pandemic's been. So UK borders are open. Students don't need a negative COVID test before travelling to the UK, but they will be temperature checked on arrival. And there is also a card asking whether or not students have had symptoms, and obviously, relying on students to report that. And there have been instances, not of students, but there has been camera footage of people boarding a plane and showing symptoms, and then they've just been led off the plane again. The UK border is watching out for that. There is also the track and trace system. So on arrival to the UK, students have to give a named address and give their contact details. And then they must make their way straight from the airport to the address that they've given as their staying address whilst they're self-isolating. So the self-isolation period is 2 weeks, it's 14 days. When you arrive to the UK, you make your way straight to that destination and you stay inside for 14 days. So I know it is going to be pretty boring, and we do appreciate that. And we've done a lot this year at Loughborough to try and keep the students entertained for that 14-day self-isolation period. So we've done online sports activities, student unions done stuff and all kinds of things. But it's important that students do stay put during that time, because obviously it reduces the risk of spreading if you do have anything, or if you're asymptomatic and you don't actually have any symptoms on display. Once the 14 days is finished, then people are free to go around as normal. In any public spaces in the UK, you must wear a mask. Shops will say that you're not permitted entry unless you are wearing a mask, and there's extra hand sanitization and public awareness is to a greater degree about hand washing and things like that. And then, as I said, we've got the blended learning, which is standard across most UK universities now to try and reduce contact. So UK as a whole, I know it's been in the eye for not having reacted as quickly as needed when the pandemic first hit. I think that's a fair assumption. I think now that the message has finally got through, and that a lot more steps are being taken, and certainly within universities, they're probably the most controlled environments, in that at least we know where all the students are, and students tend to be grouped in household bubbles. So once you're with your flatmates, that is your household. And then you'll operate as a household whilst on campus. But in terms of fatalities, UK fatalities are now obviously much lower than previously. We are seeing a rise in cases, but again, UK government's being very quick to shut down based on data, whichever areas are affected by that. So if they start to see an increase in localised cases, then we have a tier system where basically they might move up to the next tier, which is like an amber tier warning, and that means you're no longer allowed to socialise with people from different households if you happen to be in that tier. So I think it is reactive, and it does seem to be led by the data that's going forward.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you both for that. Okay, there was a question that was posed on the chat about foundations. I think a couple of people have asked that. So I think they have been answered, but just to sort of summarize that, someone asked if you can do a foundation course after year 11, or do we have to wait till after year 13? In a nutshell, you can do a foundation either after year 11, 12, or 13. If you perhaps have not done so well after each of those exams, you will need, in general, at least 5 passes in O-levels, and of course passing AS and relevant in A2 levels to get into a foundation. As Alicia said, it's mostly 1 year, and I can see my colleagues there putting down the relevant costs. One thing I will say on foundations is you have to, of course, consider the pros and cons. Of course, a lot of people look at it because it's a shorter and perhaps perceived easier way into university, but there are lots of things to think about. For example, the cost of it, going out of your home country a year earlier, are you mature enough, are you ready for that, etc. So It is possible, yes, to answer your question, but something I would suggest you come in and have a chat about with us, because there are lots of factors to consider there. Okay, I think we'll give it a couple minutes if there are any more questions. Otherwise, we will call it for the evening there. Is there anyone else who perhaps wants to unmute and ask a question or put it on the chat? Okay, I guess it means Chris and Alicia and Karuna and Absentia have done a fantastic job in giving out the information we needed. So that being that, I will once again thank our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to share their information with us tonight. For students and parents, thank you as well for attending. The next steps I would hope for you would be to contact us at UNISERV in terms of the application, in terms of the essays you have to write, and perhaps the standardized tests you may have to take when it comes to medicine or pharmacy or English, whatever it is. And then, of course, going forward onto the visa, which, as my colleagues have mentioned today, is changing as we go along. So we'll leave it to that. And thanks once again to everyone for attending. And you have our contact information. So please do get in touch. But otherwise, thank you and good evening to everyone. And good afternoon to some of you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.